Oh man, I managed to sign with K1, the dream. That was the organization I wanted to be with, which ended up leading to signing for one of the new biggest organizations, Glory, and then Bellator after that. Along the way, I won 6 pro world titles, and I can now call myself a professional athlete, which is something I always dreamed of being.
I just got into medical school at the University of Alberta.
I've created a personal brand to help people figure out which skin and rejuvenation options could help them address their goals. I've worked with male celebrities online from all over, and I've collaborated with some of the top health and wellness icons in the space of biohacking, regenerative medicine, including Dave Asprey, JJ Virgin. My podcast hit the top 30 in USA for education and 20th in Canada for education.
It took me 4 years where I was specifically focusing on pursuing medicine, but it actually took me much longer than that because I'd already completed a previous degree that took me 4 years, on top of working for a medical company down in Los Angeles for 2 years. So with all of those factors contributing, it took me at approximately 10 years to get into medical school.
I mean, in some sense, I've been working at it my whole life, but really, I guess I had my first pro fight when I was 20 years old and then turned professional at 25. I didn't really hit my big break, my big prominence on the world stage until about 3 years after that. So yeah, I mean, it could be somewhere between, you could say 3 years all the way up to 15 or 20 years.
Technically, it's taken me nearly 10 years to develop this level of expertise in the space of regenerative medicine and skin and rejuvenation. But really, what I've created online has taken me a solid 2 years. I gave myself the option of either doing 6 years of med school or 2 years in the online space to see if I could create a viable online business.
Absolutely. The first time that I wrote the medical college admission test, there's 4 components, and in one of those components I ended up scoring in, I believe, the 17th percentile, and you need to score up in the 90th percentile. So that was a definite challenge, was overcoming that and writing the exam again and scoring up in that 90th percentile.
100% yes, and it's not just failure within the ring, it's failure on training days, injuries which hold you back. That's on you most of the time. You made some mistake and your body just couldn't keep up with you because you weren't really taking care of it. Yes, I've had failures along the way.
I wouldn't say I experienced failures. I definitely experienced roadblocks and points where I needed to pivot. And I did this by looking at my analytics, really figuring out what my ideal customer wanted, narrowing in on my niche. Those were some of my biggest mistakes, it was just too broad. So would I consider the different bumps along the way failures? No, they're part of the learning process. I never considered quitting, not even for a second. I knew in my bones that this vision of mine to help both the patient and the professional, I knew that people were going to want this, and I knew that providing this in an online way really was going to be the way of the future.
No, I didn't. I never considered quitting. That doesn't mean that I didn't have bad days, obstacles to overcome, or days where you'd have those negative thoughts coming into your mind. But overall, I just have to push those out and kind of maintain that attitude that this is something that I'm going to achieve.
No, not really. I've never really had to consider quitting. For me, it's not so much the idea of quitting because I wasn't being successful. It's just always been more if I'm getting injured. If my head's taking impact, then it's time to stop. But am I going to quit because somebody gets in my way, somebody holds me back because they're better than me on one given night in the ring? No, that's not going to stop me. That's going to drive me more.
I think that one of the hardest parts for me was that when you're applying to medicine, you can only do it once a year. So when you end up hitting kind of one of those failures, such as writing the MCAT and not getting the score that you need, or doing an interview and not getting accepted, well, then you got to think like, how can I revamp and put another whole year into this process? When you reach for something that's challenging, there's always that worry that you might not achieve it.
Most people would probably think it's the training, training, but I love the training. For me, the difficulty was the not knowing. I'm putting in the effort, I'm putting in the work, and you're not seeing those results. You're not getting what you wanted, not because of you, but because of other people. I was winning fights, I was winning titles, but you're waiting for your shot, and that's just all timing. And that was so hard, waiting for the timing to come together and just get that opportunity to show the world what you're capable of.
So the hardest part was really having an innovative idea and then putting it into practice, all those nuts and bolts and the inner workings and things like that. I had many goals simultaneously, which is very different from my husband Gabriel, who has one goal and really focuses on that. So that was actually really tricky, was sort of him understanding how my mind works a little bit differently than his.
I had times, where I got injured and I wasn't able to train and I felt bummed out and I was going, I've put so much time in. What if I don't get to continue training because this injury is so substantial? But now that I've seen the big picture, I've accomplished what I wanted. And even though it took 12, 13 years of training and competition to get here, no, it's amazing. I would not give it up.
No, if anything, having pursued that goal for so long and finally having achieved it made that so much more satisfactory. Had I been able to achieve it quickly, it would have been something that I would have been very happy about. It would have been a little bit faster along that timeline, which would have been nice. But at the same time, having to go through those challenging situations, having to overcome those failures has really made that acceptance to medical school that much more satisfying and something that I'm that much more proud of.
Any entrepreneur will tell you that it will take you about 1 to 3 years to develop a business and whether it's going to be viable or not in that point. So I hit it at 2 years, so I was pretty happy with that. Do I regret how long it took me? No, I feel like I hit my target at the appropriate timeline.
I was in my late 20s when I decided to return back to school to pursue medicine, and I'm so happy that I decided to do that despite having reservations based on my age. And I hope that if you have some goal, some passion, or wanting to return back to school, that you don't let your age stand in the way.
If you have a dream, make sure it's your dream. Make sure it's not your family's dream, your loved one's dream. Make sure you're not in it for the fame or the money. You have to do what lights you up, because when you are doing something that is going to be making you money and you also love, it's that seamless interweaving connection of, work, life, personal development, professional development, which is really, really cool. So if you have a dream, just make sure it's in alignment with your highest good and your highest purpose.
So I'm not just giving you guys that cliche, like follow your dream, you can do it. I'm gonna give you guys some advice, and that advice is if you want to accomplish something massive, you need to have a lot of small goals, and bit by bit as you accomplish those small goals, you'll get closer and closer to your big goal. And if you only have one goal, if it's just massive and substantial and you're not feeling like you're making any headway, it's just overwhelming and daunting. So set small goals for yourself and you will eventually, with time, get to that massive goal, accomplish your dream.